just fantastic. Captain's log, subject 210928.9. The neutral loaf went down like a lump of lead, which has led to a protest of not eating, so we've started teleporting the food directly into their stomachs with anti-gag meds as an insurance policy. Welcome everyone to the Halls of Injustice. Today we welcome inmates number 090, Kim Gordon, aka Kim Avis. There's a name change somewhere, no idea where. Kim Avis is from Inverness, Scotland, and was once a celebrated member of the community, so much so that he in fact received a Good Citizen Award for his work. He was, while he was in Inverness, a markets trader and a busker. Lived in a decent home, had a wife, son, 2 dogs, all of which was lost in 2019. Because in 2019, February more notably, his world unravelled and then fell apart, of course, when he was charged with 13 offences of, and for some reason these are separate, but I'm sure there's a reason why, rape, sexual assault and indecency. There is a 14th charge. We'll get to that later on as it doesn't really fit in yet. Now these charges were for crimes that were alleged to have happened between the years 2003 and 2016. One victim was aged 12 and one other also thought to be a child, but with very little confirmation, more speculation from sources. So already we're off to a rip-roaring start with Kim Avis, aren't we? Yes. Kim Avis though had a plan, because he was a tad concerned that he might not get a fair trial in Scotland. Now we can certainly poke holes at the Scottish criminal justice system. Hell, the 10th Halls of Injustice was solely based on Scotland, because it is and has been for quite some time quite the joke. So Kim Avis hatched his plan, and his plan was simply to disappear. First on the chopping block were his 2 huskies, which were taken to an animal shelter. He then sold his family home for £250,000, which is a decent amount of money if you intend to start up a life elsewhere. Kim Avis, by the way, did do other work abroad, in America. Kim Avis then got a flight and flew out to California with his son. Kim Avis then decided to make sure that things really went to plan, so he could start a new life. He had to vanish. He had to become a ghost. Not the smartest ghost, we'll get to why in a moment, but his plan involved disappearing, and to do this he went to Monastery Beach, which is more commonly known as Mortuary Beach, and the reason why is because there's been quite a considerable number of people who have over the decades gone missing while going for swims there. So he in effect faked his death. This then gave him the freedom with his wife and son to simply start a new life somewhere else, pretending to be American so he could slip in and out unnoticed. The plan was also to set up Airbnbs. That way his income was kind of off the books. He didn't have to register an identity, which meant he got lazy with the name change from Kim Gordon to Kim Avis. Kim Avis then settled down in Colorado Springs, where he was living in a motel, a rather cheap one, which is also mentioned in all articles. Pinned comment down below, we don't want to get a strike now. And sought out building his business so he didn't have to do any actual work, while he could continue to live a life, evading what he had been accused of. During this time of about 5 months, from being accused to disappearing to when he was eventually obviously found, investigators found out that his disappearance at Mortuary Beach, well, it tagged him a little, because they did some digging and noticed he was on bail for offences in Scotland. So the US Marshal Services decided, we're going to go hunting. And the reason it all flared up was because he had not turned up to a simple hearing. It was not a case of remand, custody, simply a hearing. Because he hadn't turned up, things escalated, which means the additional charge is evasion. Until he was found, this could not continue, the case that is. So eventually the US Marshal Services did in fact find Kim Avis and arrest him, where he was then extradited back to Scotland, where he belongs quite frankly, and thus the trial was allowed to continue, but obviously this time with little to no freedom. Of the 14 charges in total now levied at Kim Avis, it was 13, but do remember the Evasion one. He pled guilty to some of them, which is interesting because after being sentenced, he maintained his innocence for all of it. A tad contradictory, but I know why he did it. He gets a lesser sentence, and we'll get to that sentence in a moment, don't worry. Somewhat interestingly, there was a source in the US that actually passed on some interesting information. He never told us anything about what was going on. He said something about a witch hunt and that people were being malicious. He said he was an American citizen, but we knew something was wrong. The next thing I know, he got picked up at a hotel room in Colorado Springs, and we found out who he was and about these charges. He said he needed to go back to Scotland and take care of something, and that he was going to do Airbnbs in the US for money and stuff. We didn't think he was facing court. I have no idea who that source is from, but I would assume a contact of his in Colorado Springs. I just wanted to mention it because it's interesting to see how he managed to spin his own life elsewhere. But back to the trial. Judge Lord Sanderson quoted as saying, "You effectively went on the run before US Marshals, unpersuaded that you were dead, tracked you down." During the trial, it was mentioned about his Good Citizen Award, how much he was in fact known in his home city, but then they went down the darker path, controlling and dominant personality, which came from a background report, proving that he had manipulated, managed, coerced his victims, which then undoubtedly led to him, along with his guilty plea on some of the charges, him being found guilty of raping 2 women and a 12-year-old girl, as well as the attack on another child of the same age. And with this comes a rather interesting sentence. After being found guilty of 13 charges of sexual offences, Kim Avis, aka Kim Gordon, was sentenced to 12 years and placed on the sex offenders register indefinitely. For evasion, he was given an additional 36 months or 3 years, meaning his total sentence is 15 years, meaning that Kim Avis, for 13 sexual offences and 1 evasion, will be out in a grand total of 7.5 years. Understandably, I don't think anyone agrees with this sentence at all. I don't. I certainly don't. He can plead his innocence until he is blue in the face. But my view is, if he's going to be sentenced to 15 years for serious crimes like that, which is a laughable sentence at best, he should serve all 15 years, meaning at the age of 57, he'll be released at the age of 72. I personally would add a 0 to his sentence, because the nature of the crime is serious enough that I would not want him at any age, no matter how decrepit he becomes, to be permitted to walk the streets of Scotland ever again. And yes, we will keep him alive for 150 years, take him off that particular life support program, and he'll probably disintegrate before he actually leaves the prison complex. There was a statement released by the UK police for the Domestic Abuse Task Force. There was also a statement released by the US Marshal Services Office. I'm not going to read them, but they are linked in the articles in the pinned comments down below. As we're done, get in your cell, Kim. I'd like to know what you think, so please do let me know in the comments down below. I hope you'll have a fantastic day. Thank you all very much for listening. If you did enjoy this video, please consider smashing the like, leaving a comment with your sentence, and if possible, please consider sharing it, as it greatly helps this channel.